9 o'clock on the dot. What's up, everybody? My name is Isenberg. I'm going to be breaking down some tracks tonight. I'll start off with questions. Does anybody have any questions, like right out of the gate? No questions. All right, what does everybody produce in here? Mostly house music, bass music, a little bit of both. So, a little bit about myself. I make mostly house music, a little bit of breaks. I've done some drum and bass. I'm a little on the bassier side, UK bass influence. So, the kind of benefits of doing bass house is it's similar to dubstep. In the way I go about my sound design. So I'll show you some tricks. Like these sounds could be used for dubstep as well. It's just a different groove, different cadence, different tempo. So I can show you some stuff that would translate to dubstep. Appreciate it. Yeah, so I don't like to do one genre. I kind of have techier sounding tracks. I got some real UK bass lining tracks. I have a drum and bass track somewhere on there. It's more of minimal. But I don't like to just do one genre, so I kind of go all over the place. But I guess we'll start with the kick. Chris, that satisfying kick. So this is one of the most underrated things as a producer. A lot of people want a bunch of complex stuff. Do this to your kick, do this, do this, do this. This is how you make it punch. Well, there's a bunch of stuff that you can do. The best thing is sample picking. That's why I only write in MIDI. Occasionally I'll throw in a wave, but I try to stay in MIDI because when I'm writing, my process is write it as fast as I can and then worry about the mix later. So what I'll do is I'll write out my track. I'll start with the groove, the writing, and then fleshing it out to a full track. And then I focus on the timbre, the dynamic, the punch, the mix, and then finally the master. But first thing I always do is I start a MIDI track, create a new clip, try that one more time, and I will drop in a kick. Now I tend to have my favorite kicks already over here. These are the kicks I use in almost all of my songs, depending on the key. That is the kick in this song. There's not much processing done to it, but I'll drop it in, and I'll just write. This up a bit. So all I've done was taken that kick, added a little bit of distortion, and turned it up. So one of the biggest things you can do as a producer is sample picking. I will comb through samples, and this kind of comes with time, is learning what samples will fit and what will sound good. Also writing in the key, the same key signature. So this is kind of, it's not really technically E, but it is, the tonal center is E. So I look for a kick in E. So sample picking is very important because you can have excellent writing, a great mix, but if your sample is just doesn't fit, it can throw off the song. So that's kind of what I do as far as starting off my tracks. And sometimes I'll just throw in a placeholder and then replace it in the mix. Like I'll just throw in some random kick, and once I get to the mix, I'll replace it with a kick that fits. So that's how I start my track. I start by laying a foundation. I'll start with drums. Usually, I'll just kind of go through what I do. So if I'm making a house track, I'll I mean, this goes for dubstep as well. You know, if you're making a dubstep track or drum and bass track, your foundation.
Make your music stand out, get more views, and way more engagement. Bring your music to life. Get Music Visualizer. In every format, even for social media. Get started today. The link is in the description.
So this is where I usually start. And I like to color code things because I'm a little neurotic about it. So it also makes it easier to find everything. And then I'll start with my foundation. Kick, snare, hats, sub. So I'll focus on the groove. In this case, since I'm doing more of a bass line, and I'll do my writing. So as far as my writing goes, I spend a lot of people, especially new producers, assume that producers just sit down and they just do it and it comes out fast and naturally. Well, yeah. But in reality, the process for me, some people are quicker. I will spend hours just trying to get the groove right in this 8-bar loop. So I'll sit here and tweak a sound, foundation. I usually start with the drop. Usually, sometimes I will start with the intro, but very rarely. So what I did in this track was I centered it around this bass line right here. And I think originally I just repeated it. Oops. There we go. So this was kind of my main riff right here. So I know some producers that use audio. Me personally, I like MIDI because I don't like to sit there and go down a rabbit hole of tweaking a drum. Especially because later on in the process, I'm going to tweak it a whole bunch more. So I will do MIDI and adjust it here. And I can adjust the decay, sustain, anything you can do with an audio file. And I'll add a little overdrive. Just kind of make it a dirty kick. But if I get down to the, the mix and master and something's clashing, I can just come in and completely replace it. Whereas if it's audio, then I gotta go through and copy and paste each one of these kicks and take out what I don't want. So I personally just use MIDI for a faster workflow. Now sometimes audio can be good. If that's what you're used to, go for it. I recommend MIDI. I've done lessons for a while now, and I usually recommend my clients use MIDI just because of workflow, which to me is one of the most important parts of production, because if you spend too long in a project, it's not going to get done. You'll sit there, obsess about it, you'll go back and forth, you'll get frustrated. A big key to this is just cranking it out as fast as you can while taking the time to focus on areas that need attention. It's learning to move fast but not be lazy. There's kind of a balance there, because you don't want to just sit here and tweak a snare for 6 hours, which I can tell you every producer has been there at some point. I've done it, but I used a Taiki New Light sample. I just dropped it into MIDI. I think I tuned it down. Nope, just a straight sample. Gave it a little overdrive, and that's it. Sample picking. What's up, Danny? So that's why I use MIDI. Again, it's up to you, but I recommend MIDI. Now, yes, yeah, I'm actually working on a song right now that I like to try new stuff. I hate doing the same thing over and over, even though I could probably crank out 20 tracks like this in a couple days, but it just gets boring to me. I like to try new stuff. But I'm in the middle of a track right now that's kind of taking me a while, because I'm sitting there obsessing over timbre and dynamic. And then after a while, you kind of start to build frustration, and you just got to move past it. You just got to keep going. Yes, serum patch. So what I'll do is I'll usually write a bass line. Let me So I will normally, I don't use very many VSTs or plugins. I use Serum and Ozone. That's it. A lot of producers have a bunch of plugins, but I learned on a computer that couldn't handle a bunch, so I just learned to kind of make do with what I got. But I'll start off with my kind of main riff. And then I will tweak sounds for, I'll have sound design days where I'll do nothing but like try new sounds, and almost everything I make is on accident. I don't usually go in saying I want it to sound like this. I'll have an idea of kind of general sound, but usually I'll make an accident. Like I'll tweak something, and I'm like, oh, that sounds cool, and then I'll just go with that. I don't think I've ever made a song where I've been like, I want it to sound like this, and then that's how it ended up. So, as far as my patch went, that's really what I did. Let me pull up Serum. Is everybody familiar with Serum here? Yes, I'll drop an operator, especially for my techier songs. My next song is a little techier. I'll go over that. I just figured we start with this since we have dubstep producers here. But yeah, I'll drop in operator and write a riff and just kind of fill it out, fill for the groove. I mean, it takes practice of just kind of being able to write a groove. There's no way around being able to write a groove, or there's no magical way to do it. It's just practice. So like since we're in E, I'll make this up. Like I'll sit here and I'll something like this. There, I mean, there's a groove right there. I don't know if y'all can hear that. It's pretty low. So I'll do that. And then one important thing I learned in songwriting is an ABAC format, by being as simple as possible. The sound design usually comes after I write my riff. I write it in an ABAC format, and then sometimes I'll write based on my sound too. So like I'll kind of do this, and then I'll make a sound that sounds cool, something like this. Let me pull up the patch because I know you are dying to see this. Yes. I stress the foundation of the track before any bells and whistles. A lot of people get distracted with this crazy sound design, reverb, delays, which are all very important, but especially producers beginning, they'll put too much and you'll run into mix problems. So this is my patch. I made this on accident. I like to play with LFOs. Is everybody familiar with Serum? So what I'll do is I will usually initialize a patch and just start building with envelopes. So this has two LFOs which act as two different envelopes. This one is acting on the sub. I have it at a quarter note, and I've gone in and messed with the envelope to kind of give it kind of almost a fidgety sound. One more important thing is key writing, especially if you're doing bass music, dubstep, bass house, bass line, drum and bass. You want to write in certain keys because they sound better in sub. For instance, you don't really want to write in C too much because you can get that sub can get lost. For instance, let's do this. I stay away from C. I've written a couple tracks in D, and I really try not to anymore because I had problems in the mixdown of getting that sub to come through, especially in normal speakers like iPhone or car speakers or MacBook speakers. So I try to stick to F, E, E flat, and I'll go as high as G. So learn your scales too. I write everything in minor or Phrygian, which is a form of minor. It's a minor with a half step down on the second note. So I will add another oscillator, and I'll use a different envelope for that to kind of give it a separated groove. No, not at all. I only use Serum, samples, and Ozone for mastering. That's it. I'm looking into getting the complete bundle just because it can save me time on sample hunting, but it's not necessary at all. My biggest track is done nothing but with Serum, samples, and Ozone. I mean, I've seen people use Operator to get some pretty crazy sounds too. You don't even need Serum. I like Serum just because that's what I learned on. I like the layout, and I like the way it looks, but you don't... I mean, it's whatever you're comfortable with. I usually tell like my students or my clients, start with basics. You don't really need anything too advanced. You don't need the full Waves bundle because, I mean, Waves is for studio mixing anyway, so... So what I did with this track was I accidentally made this patch. Yeah, I'll kind of show you how I start a patch, because I mean anybody can see the final result, but they don't necessarily know how I got there. Let's use this riff that I had. So I'll usually add a sub. Okay, there we go. And for bass line, what I'll do is I'll write out an envelope. This, and I'll use that. I don't know if y'all could hear that. And then I'll even get some FM in here. Right there is already. It's literally throwing shit at the wall until it sticks. That's all I do. So like I'll sit there and I don't like to second guess myself. If it sounds good the first time, then I keep it. Because if you hear something over and over a million times and then you compare it to something else, no matter what, you as an artist, you're not gonna like it. Hey, what up, Brian? Birthday party in the house. So, all my processing on all my sounds, I use this formula right here on Serum. I use the processing in Serum because it makes it go by faster, and I don't use a bunch of fancy plugins. I can get a huge sound just with this. Watch. Switch to multiband. I'll even throw another filter back. And I'll throw reverb on after, just to add a little dimension here. And then after that, I've kind of found the sweet spot of what I like. I'll throw on an OTT and a limiter. That kind of crushes the sound. And that's how I got this sound. Oh, I also added an auto pan, this kind of amp modulation. Oh, that's okay. So. So I just, I mean, you can soft clip, but it honestly doesn't matter. Like, I learned a bunch of rules, like when I learned engineering. But I kind of sticked to the rules. So all my LFO grooves are trial and error. I will use groove for percussion usually. I've never really used the groove for the sub or the bass. But I think the only thing I have right here is a shuffle on this, a swing to kind of give it more of a kind of a jackin' feel. But this is all done by trial and error. And then once I kind of have the sound that I like, what I'll do is I like to stick to an ABAC format, no matter what, when I'm writing. If you notice any song, you pull up your favorite song right now, you'll find an ABAC format. in their writing, unless you're doing techno or very techie tech house. But it tends to follow a certain pattern. I'll even kind of show you what I mean. So A, B, A, C. So what I mean by ABAC format is I have certain phrasing. Let me so. So that is my A phrase. Yeah, so like I did it on accident. It came out and I liked the way it sounded and I liked the groove. This was originally a BC Boys bootleg, but when I wrote it, it just came out so good that me and my management were like, this needs to be an original. So I turned it into original. So the ABAC formatting is, that's the A phrase. The B phrase is a slight change. So it's very similar. You know, some tracks will have different writing styles. Like it might be a bigger change, but I kind of kept it pretty simple in the song. So that's my B phrase. And then I go back to my A phrase again. So I repeat the same thing here. And then there's the C phrase, which is something completely different. There's vocals here. Blow up the plate. So you hear A. Bum, 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 bum. Blow up the place. So once I found my groove, like let's say I start writing a song and I have this was my groove. I'll go through and I'll make an ABAC. So like, this is my A phrase, this will be my B phrase. Or I'll drop it. And then I'll repeat A. ABAC format right there. And there's my whole writing for the song that I could base a whole song off of. This will get you out of stuff sounding too loopy. If something sounds like, oh, it's just very loopy, what newer producers tend to do is they just start adding stuff. When adding too much to a track can ruin it. I try not to add stuff unless it absolutely needs something. So I'll try to keep a track as simple as possible. After I'm done with my writing, I'll go through and I'll add accents. So like, I think this was the original writing, and I took this and I literally cut it and dropped it into a new serum patch. Let me find it. Yeah, it's the same patch. I just changed the envelope. So the original envelope was this, and instead of automating the envelope, because I have CPU to work with, I'm kind of neurotic, I will just make another serum and change the envelope. So it's this instead. That's staying the same. but the sub is. So that gives it kind of a change up without changing the writing. It's still an ABAC. So it depends when it's called for. I try to keep the same sound consistent throughout the whole song. Now with dubstep, it can be a little different. I notice producers like to do a lot of crazy stuff. But I will, if you hear more than one synth or bass line from me, it's usually the same bass line, just a little bit of tweaking. Like I'll go through and I will, like I'll find a sound, I'm like, oh, that's dope, and I'll keep it. And then I'll change it up for something different. So like, I might change the LFO. Sometimes I might add a different oscillator. And then I'll play with the sounds and I'll be like, okay, that's cool. Maybe do A, B, A, C like this. This is all trial and error. Like I will work on this 8-bar loop until the 8-bar loop sounds like a finished song, and then I'll flush it out. So that's how I work. Now, I don't like that sound, so in a real writing scenario, I would keep tweaking that and I wouldn't use it. One of my tracks, I did a bootleg of A$AP Rocky, and you hear like 4 different synths, but it's the same synth that I just tweaked. All I did was change the LFO and the FM amount, and made 4 different serums with the same sound with different LFOs and FM. That's all I did. And I feel like it came out pretty good. But yeah, so I'll make that. I'll do the ABAC writing, and then I'll add these little accents. Now, the whole theme, I like to kind of keep themes as song just because it keeps my brain creative. I like to use themes. This song is called Drop Bass Not Bombs. I got Dread MC to do the vocals. This was around the time when America bombed that Iranian general, and there were talks of World War III. So I was going for kind of more of a political song. And I had all these mortar samples and stuff that sounded like rockets and bombs. And I mean, even the main riff is kind of like a dropping sound, so. And I even threw a rocket firing sample in here. And just kind of adding these little tiny things to accent your writing will fill it out, especially in dubstep. I know dubstep has a lot of these call and response, like you got your main synth and then a lot of little tiny accents that aren't overpowering, they're just there. And
we have the bass bomb round ya. Bass bomb, blow up the place.
like that part right there. Actually didn't make a new one there. All I did was automate the envelope. And then I go back to 1/4 quarters. And I added some reverb. It kind of washed out. make it sound like a bomb dropping.
We have the bass bomb round ya.
And then I go through and I fill it out with. So originally it was a Beastie Boys bootleg. It's not even in here. I mean, I kept this sample in here. I don't know if anybody ever caught this. That's literally from Intergalactic Planetary. I thought it fit with the flow so well that I was not going to take it out.
We have the bass bomb round ya.
Don't tell Universal Records. And I went and I had to make a quick intro because I wanted this one to be more of a mixing quick hitter type. So I didn't do anything advanced for the build up. Thank you, Nick. Yeah, samples. Sample, being able to hear it. A lot of people think splice is cheating. I used to think that way too until I heard one of my favorite producers use a splice sample, and I was like, I mean, they're cranking out so many tracks that it doesn't matter. It really does. That's why I didn't take it out. Occasionally I'll drop the BC Boys bootleg, but this song ended up being bigger anyway. And yeah, these are just splice samples that I layered. I went through and I cut them. They were a little bit longer, and I just added a filter. That's all that is. Oh, and then I put a reed bass underneath. More, it's like a pedal, and then I just automated it to build up.
Try send that. Try come. Blow up the place.
And it's muted. Yeah. Some of these samples are offline. I moved computers. I think I wrote this on my old computer, so a lot of the stuff didn't transfer over. But yeah, I don't like to use a lot of effects either. I'll have one riser. I think I actually wrote that riser. Yeah, I wrote that one in an old track and it sounded like a bomb dropping, so I brought it back in. But yeah, almost all these effects are me. They're very simple. I think I just used... why am I not getting sound here? Shit ton of unnecessary processing. Have an auto pan. Yep, so I'll just go through and do that. Some tape noise. Now, vocals. So, real quick, I'll go over this before we switch to my next song. The vocals on this, so I had the track written, and I shot it over to Dredd, and he did a bunch of different takes of a bunch of different stuff. And I told him the direction I wanted to go. I want something to do with... I told him the name of the track, Drop Bass Not Bombs, so give me some vocals along those lines. And he sent me a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. Yo, selector. Yo. Selector, you know you're bad.
And I just went through and picked out a bunch of stuff that I liked.
Come on, selector on ya. Mine selector bad, you know.
And I think that was from the first one he sent, from his original idea. And I just went through and...
Better than ganja. Unless it's bass we are talking about. And we come to blow up the place with a whole heap of bass.
Now, vocal processing is that is I mean, kind of with anything as far as sound design or sample picking, it just takes time. What I'll usually do is I'll EQ. Let me make this bigger so y'all can see it. If you guys have any questions too, let me know. Wait, I'm an idiot. That does. I swear I know Ableton. What I'll do is I usually like to record my vocals because, I mean, what he sent was actually clipping, which is why I added some overdrive to kind of mask the clipping, just because I was in a hurry. And normally, professionally, you would want to take that wasn't clipping. But I'll show you the dry vocals.
Wait a minute.
Turn it sense.
Wait a minute, send for the bass bomb. Wait a minute, send for the bass bomb. Wait a minute, send for the bass bomb.
So I went through and I'll EQ first. Where'd the overdrive go? Overdrive, so you always do effects. So I also use all my spatial effects, reverb, delay. I use them in Sends. And the reason being is because if you go through and you drop reverb or delay on your track and you tune it like that, then you got to do the same for everything else. Whereas I can put my reverb right here, kind of a short haul or a short plate or a room. I'll have a washed out with a longer reverb, like a big hall or something. And I'll have my delay. I don't know if anything's even on the delay channel. I don't think there is. My filter delay, which I usually use for build-ups, it's not being used on this track. And I use, this is the only Fab Filter plugin I use, is the reverb, just because I like it sounds better than the Ableton reverb to me. But I mean, I'll still use Ableton reverb. And that way I can go through, and this also does something else besides making it easier. This glues your mix together. So if you have a bunch of different reverbs with a bunch of different rooms, your track will get muddy. And it'll sound like this snare sounds like it's in a cathedral, and then this vocal sounds like it's in a tiny bucket. So I use the same reverb for everything. And you'll even see, usually what I'll do is I'll usually add a little bit of reverb like that just to glue everything together. This glues the mix. My best tracks will take, I think the quickest, like I did this one in 3 hours, and then when I got Dred's vocals, I think that was another 6 hours. The best tracks I made have been quick, which is why I try to make it quick. Any track that I spend too much time on, usually I overthink it, and it's just not as good. So you kind of have to go through this balance of focusing on stuff that needs tweaking, and just saying, screw it on the other ones and just moving. Like it's good. It sounds good. If your ear likes it the first time, chances are somebody else will like it. You got to kind of trust your first instinct. But yeah, my vocal processing is I'll do effects, EQ, I'll compress. Since this was already kind of hot, I didn't want too much compression.
Blow up the place.
So all I'm doing here is just kind of hitting the transients, a real quick peak eater. Usually I don't have it that high either. Usually I'll kind of dial it back, but whatever. And this is blow up the place. This is heavy compression. Okay. Yeah, I don't know why I did that, but this is more of a slow attack. slower attack, faster release. So this kind of evens everything out.
Blow up the place.
And then I kind of added this OTT and dialed it to 43% to give it more of a grittier feel.
Blow up the place.
And then, of course, I turned the gate on to...
Blow up the place. With a wood, blow up the bar. Unless it's bass, we are talking about bass.
Because when you use OTT, it uses upwards compression. It'll bring up those... it'll bring up those really low noises. And I mean, if you hear OTT...
With a holy bass. With a holy bass.
So that way it kind of cuts everything out. And I kind of stray from the rule sometimes, and I'll put an EQ after.
With a holy bass.
Just to kind of make it fit in the whole mix. And then...
With a holy bass.
This is a de-esser.
With a holy bass.
Because those S's were sticking out. So the de-esser is...
With a holy bass.
It's just kind of pushing down on those S's. And then I'll take my whole Vox channel and I'll do a light multiband to kind of just tap it. Just kind of make sure it's all sorry, it's late. It's all cohesive.
Me don't want no war.
Even with these different effects, because I have this kind of telephone effect on here.
Me don't want no war. Unless it's bass we are talking about. I'm gonna come for blue.
And that's all I use for a telephone effect. It's just an overdrive.
Me don't want no. Wait, I wanna send for the bass bomb. Bomb, 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 bomb. Blow up the place.
And I'm just kind of making sure everything is in its place. This is really good for different takes. If the singer has different gain staging, which is what was going on here. He got closer to the mic, he got farther from the mic. Then I have effect on this one and effect on this one. No effect on this one, and then this one is layered with the lower take.
Try send that. Try come.
Blow up the place.
This kind of glues it all together so it sounds like one acapella.
Blow up the place. Hey, no, select around ya. Blow up the place. The bass bomb around ya. Bass bomb. Blow up the place.
And it's going to delay and...
Try send that. Try come. Blow up the place.
I'll even add some reverb too. That is a little bit rare. But I'll do that to kind of make it, if the delay's sticking out too much, I'll kind of wash it in the back. And then this is just a flanger. I ran the sample through, I ran the sample through Serum FX and just put on a flanger. And I pitch it up. I think I pitched it up. Yeah, I did. Yeah, that's all I did. That's kind of an old, an older technique. Like old drum and bass tunes used to do that a lot.
Try send that. Try come. Blow up the place.
Does anybody have any questions? Am I missing something?
Make your music stand out, get more views, and way more engagement. Bring your music to life. Get Music Visualizer. In every format, even for social media. Get started today. The link is in the description.
Bass bomb. Blow up the place.
I don't touch my master. If I bounce it out for SoundCloud, I'll throw in a limiter. but I will mix down the track, and then I'll go through and master it. I'm a mastering engineer too. I've been mixing and mastering tracks professionally for 5 years. So I won't touch this. Gotcha. And this is my group chain. It's just made the bass a little bit wider, kind of compressed it, brought out some sound. This is me going down the rabbit hole, just making sure it sounds great tonally. Kind of weird. And then sidechain. Sidechain always at the end. No matter what, sidechain's always at the end. And my master chain is I will hit a peak eater. And I want this as transparent as possible. This is just kind of all this compression before my master chain is just kind of taking weight off the limiter. I'm barely, I even turned this one off, but it's just barely tapping right here. You can't even. This is more of a glue, slow attack, quick release. This kind of just glues everything together slightly. Same thing here. It's the center around the kick, just to make sure everything's kind of pushed around that kick. And then ozone. That's it. Side channel, I cut everything off. Everything off and sub. You don't want any sub in the side channel unless you're doing some crazy freestyle bass music where you want some weird sound. I think I've had side channel and a turnaround one time. And I just go through and I take out harsh frequencies, or, I try to usually match a pink noise curve. And I'll use references too. I'll drop in tracks that I like as far as master and mix, and I'll match it tonally and dynamic. And then I'll go through dynamic, the multipressor, and I just tap each band. And then I'll dial down the parallel. So I'm barely. I'm getting 0.1 decibel of gain reduction in each band. This just kind of takes weight off the limiter and kind of makes it it kind of glues it together slightly. But you don't want it up too much, because then you kind of you also want separation. It's a balance of separation and glue. That is the whole mix and master process. And then this is not orthodox, not traditional way. I was always taught to master right here, but I stopped caring and I made it a faster. I made the limiter faster and I smashed it, but. That's pretty loud, and I try not to go above -6 gain reduction. So I will, if something's sticking out in the EQ, I'll go through and I'll oh, that snare's too hot, and instead of turning it down in the master, I'll do this. But I also like things to kind of stick out in the mix, because when I glue it together with the master, I like my sub to be a little hot, just because it's bass, bass music. So I like my sub and kick to kind of be higher in the mix, and then I'll just turn it down in the mastering process. So I'll glue it around there and just kind of push it down on the master, and it kind of anchors around that kick and sub. And I don't like. So, like, for instance, the reason why I have a cut right here is that one synth. I don't really want to turn down that synth because I like the frequencies up high. I just don't really like that tone right there in my final master, because sometimes really pushing this can bring out tones that I don't want. So, I mean, this is also a process of trial and error, doing it over and over and over, and just kind of listening and using references. I forget what reference I used for this. Might have been some Taiki New Light track or something, or Chris Lorenzo. I think it was Come Down by Chris Lorenzo. I really like that master and mix, so I kind of go for that same tone curve. I'll like listen, I'll A-B it and go back and forth. So Pat, I didn't before, just because I didn't have the capacity. My old computer couldn't handle, and I was broke, so I didn't have a luff meter. But recently I just got Insight. But I tend to use references, A/B references. I'll drop in a track, I'll go through and I'll pick a track that I like and I'll drop it in and I'll A/B it and listen for loudness the old school way. So, I mean, if I have if there's a super successful track that's loud, and I try to match it and try to match the loudness. I don't know if this is my loudest track. I never even looked at the loss. My loudest track is loud. I mean, that's pretty good, especially because they're still dynamic in here. It's not smash. I can hear the kick, I can hear the hats, I can hear the snare, I can hear, like, nothing's just like crushed. Shout out birthday party, the homies. All right, any more questions on this before I move on to my next one? John, I'm bad at social media. Give me a break. That's how I learned. Chris Lund taught me. I don't know if you guys know who Chris Lund is, left, right. He's the one who taught me audio engineering. Because I would take my tracks to him to get mixed and mastered. I used to make hip-hop beats. I use stock Ableton compressors because I'm cheap. And that's what I learned on those. I barely tap them, like 13%, 30%, 12%. They're almost, these are pretty transparent. I mean, this is a low ratio. It's just to take weight off the limiter and kind of glue it together. It's that balance of separation and glue. Just doing it a million times. Let me pull up my other track. Don't save. I ran a bit over, but exactly. And I just learned through Chris Lund, and I kind of watched what he did. There's different techniques. Like this project still has my references in here. This track is actually probably one of my loudest, second loudest. Coming out on Bite This a little bit later. I forget, I think end of November. But I referenced it. This is probably one of my bigger tracks. It's a little techier. It still has an A/B/AC writing format. This one was a very simple writing. A lot of people downplay tech house because they don't think it takes much skill. It's a different it's a different style. Like with a dubstep and bass line, it's all about sound design. This is about finding the groove and then finding a way to make it not get too loopy, and also it really comes down to the mix and master for a lot of these tracks. It's a little less sound design and more about macro phrasing, a long give and take, especially with, like, I mean, you look at these techno tracks that are really long. Those are hard to make. Anybody can make an 8-bar loop of a techno sound. It's really getting it to build, drop, know when to cut stuff at the right time. It's just a different style. But I think all I did was I wrote this, and I want to say Operator or Serum, just a clean sub. I cut the bass a lot. That's the mixing and mastering process. The bass was probably way too hot. 10 decibels, jeez. But this is a song. And I wrote this on my old computer. A lot of this stuff is flattened because my computer couldn't handle it. I had to get a new computer after this. It was a Mac from like 2012 that was dying every time I put ozone on. I ended up replacing this kick probably like 4 different times, which is why, again, MIDI. I think I actually mixed this one into the limiter because I was trying to, I was trying to match mine. It was really hard to get that loudness. I'm drinking Topo Chico, by the way. I swear I'm not drinking this late. So yeah, this is the same bass line throughout the whole thing. I didn't change much. It follows an ABAC format. I had to flatten it so I can't show you the MIDI. And I turned this down for mastering purposes because I'm slamming the limiter. But then it was really about these effects and drops that really carried it. And that's the hard part about tech house to me is it's the nuance. It's these tiny little things that can keep the track from getting stale. This was a very Chris Lake inspired song. Like I was going for that kind of darker tech house sound. And I actually had these vocals, so Lindsay was a client of mine. I haven't been taking clients during COVID, but she wrote a sketch, and I liked it. So I was sitting on the vocals for a while, and I was looking for the perfect track to put it in. And then I made this, and I was like, this is perfect. And I even have her vocals in an ABAC format. I think it's ABAC, technically.
Let me be your disco ball. Dance with me, you can't go wrong. Let me be your disco ball. Dance with me, you can't go wrong.
Yeah. And these are actually very hard tuned. I don't have my iLock with me. It's at the studio, so it's flattened. But I have Melodyne and Auto-Tune. Those are two other plugins that I'll use for vocals. But I went in with Melodyne and put her vocals in a very drony, flat, or like a drony E Phrygian. So it's centered around E.
Let me be your disco ball. Dance with me, you can't go wrong. Let me be your disco ball. Dance with me, you can't go wrong.
Yep. And I just went through and I first made the track on this 8-bar loop right here with the way I was showing you earlier, how I just wrote a bass line. I think all I had was a kick. And then I went through and ended up layering it, layering the clap. So like I'll layer stuff, but the writing is usually just a kick, hi-hat, and clap. That way I can really get the groove down. I'll do this. And then I'll go through and add accents. With this, I didn't want too many bass sounds like I use in bass music, so I use percussion and samples to act as accents. That kick is actually like distorting, but I didn't care. There's certain rules that, like, yeah, you don't want stuff distorting, but I found that kind of going outside those boundaries can help sometimes. Like, I don't care that kick is distorting to me. Like, it sounds good to me with a little bit of dirt on it. That's an ABAC format too. B, A, C. But this time, the sub is pretty much the same. I use accents to go with the ABAC. So like, B with the snare and a washed-out clap. Just very subtle. And then I had that little accent here that I serum. Then I added a breath underneath. have a delay out somewhere here. I use filter delays a lot. And I'll automate my filter delays. And I actually use the filter delay quite a bit for vocals to really make it build. And then the second drop. And I had to freeze this because it was taking too much processing. But I can actually pull it out. See what my patch looked like. I know I'm very ADD. I jump around a lot, so if you have a question, just let me know. Ball plug. So all it is I was going for a really Chris Lake, Chris Lorenzo style sound here. And I just dropped it in the back. Whoops. Wrong one. Bass Pro R. Very short drum studio, so it sounds like it's there, but it's just right behind everything. This is a very the tone was very much like Chris Lake, Taiki, all the UK high bass guys. That's how I got that noise. But this was a very simple song with not much to it, just a lot of mixing and figuring out how to make this flow together. There's a lot of kind of trial and error on that part. My processing for this one was very similar to the last track. I really wanted it to be kind of grimy sounding, so I compressed it quite a bit. I didn't want it to sound natural. I wanted it to sound very droning, robotic, so there's a lot of processing.
Let me be your disco ball.
It didn't need much compression as far as peaks, because she doesn't have like a super dynamic voice. It was more like a whisper talking kind of croon. So I put some upwards compression on it to give it a very rough kind of sound.
Dance with me, you can't go wrong. Let me be your disco ball.
Like those S's really came out, which I wanted.
You can't go wrong.
As far as connecting with singers, oh man, I'll hit up singers that I like. Hold on, I'm hearing it play out there. Problem with the filter delay. Lindsay, I know Lindsay. She's from Dallas, Milazzo. And she had wrote that, and I had her come in and sing it. I have another track with another local artist named Savannah. We're working on a track. As far as my last one, I hit up Dread. Best thing to do is just like hit him up. But everybody I've hit up, I know. So a lot of networking, a lot of getting to know people. And if you need a singer, be like, hey, I need a singer for this. Do you know anybody? Other producers can put you in contact with other singers, and there are plenty out there. And a lot of the vocalists in the EDM community tend to do a lot of EDM tracks. Usually, like I know everybody in the house scene and break scene knows Dread MC. He tours with My New Lang. There's quite a few out there. But as far as connecting with singers, I mean, I think vocals are one of the hardest things to do. To me, as far as these tracks and mixing, the importance for me is kick and sub, and percussion and vocals next. Everything else can kind of be in there. Like, they're not as important. They can kind of be in the background.
Let me be your disco ball. Dance with me, you can't go wrong. Let me be your disco ball. Dance with me, you can't go wrong. Let me be your disco ball. Dance with me, you can't go wrong. Let me be your disco ball. Dance with me, you can't go wrong. Let me be your disco ball. Dance with me.
I used to filter delay on this.
Let me
Kind of add energy here.
Let me be your disco ball. Dance with me, you can't go wrong. Let me be your disco ball.
Best tip I can give on vocals. If you're tracking it, make sure that nothing's clipping and you want to get the gain staging right. So you don't want it too hot, especially if they have a real dynamic voice. Keep it lower. But it always goes effects, so let's say chorus, EQ, compressor. I'll use two compressors, one for the transients and then one for the overall body of it. So I'll use a, say, peak compressor.
Let me be your disco ball.
Let's go on this one. This is already compressed and flattened, but it looks similar to the last track.
Let me be your disco ball.
So I'll use effects. I'll rarely use effects like this. But maybe a big crusher or just like something.
Let me.
So I'll use a peak.
Let me.
I'll attack, especially if it's like a rapper or something.
Let me be your disco ball. 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 Let me be your.
And as far as compression, you always want equal perceived loudness. When compressing, sometimes somebody can overcompress it.
Let me be your disco ball. Let me be your disco.
And naturally, somebody's going to pick the louder one. So what you want to do here is get the same loudness, the equal perceived loudness when it's on and off. So
let me be your disco ball. 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 Let me be your disco ball.
So theoretically.
Let me be your disco ball. 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 Let me be your.
That's a great tip for compression. As far as the pitch down vocal, sometimes it's really low in the mix. I really wanted it to just be layered in there and sound kind of dissonant and.
Let me be your disco ball. Let me be your
Disco ball, let me be your disco ball.
And I think I put a bit crusher on this to where it kind of gave it a little more grit, like it sounded kind of dusty.
Let me be your disco ball.
Let me be your disco ball.
It just kind of sounded sexier to me.
Let me be your disco ball. Let me be your disco.
But I don't always do that. It kind of depends on the mood of the track. Like I have a UK garage track, a kind of a two-step, where the vocals aren't that heavily processed. I mostly put I had her layer a bunch of harmonies under it, and I'll layer the harmonies. And then if I have, I used to layer vocals and then pan them out, but in my opinion, that's kind of a dated sound. Like if you go back and listen to pop music and rap from the 2000s, you'll hear layers of vocals and they'll pan them out. Like so, they'll turn these down
Let me be.
and then pan them out.
Let me be your disco ball.
And that's a way to widen it. But I think more modern vocals, it's just one. And I think
Let me be your disco.
Let me be your disco ball.
actually did put a chorus on this one. I think I put a flanger and a phaser to kind of widen it and make it sound very hypnotic. And I like hit it at like 30%. So I think it was
Let me be your disco ball. 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 Let me be your disco.
that's what I did for her vocals, just to kind of give it some width and make it more hypnotic. I'll put in placeholder vocals, especially with like splice samples. But the problem with splice samples is a lot of them suck, and it's really hard to get a good original vocal. Like to me, when she wrote this, she had it for one of her tracks, and I told her, I was like, "Yo, let me put this on a track. This is a really good idea." And I found the perfect track for it. I had it on like 3 other tracks before I settled on this one. When I made this song, I was like, it needs that vocal. But there was one track I put a placeholder vocal on. I think it was a track called Leave that came out on Dr. Fresh's label. I used a sample and I just kind of threw it in there. And when I finished the song, I liked the placeholder, so I just kept it. It was I want to say it was a Kathy Brown song. I just chopped and detuned it. I dropped it into an F minor. And yeah. But I usually don't. I can hear where the vocals will be. But I mean, whatever works for you too. Like you can put, like, I'll put in the same with MIDI. Like I'll put in placeholder kicks. Like this was not the final kick that I used, or the kicks before. Like I think I went through 3 different kicks. Yeah, I originally had these kicks, the original. I don't know if this is even on anymore. I don't know why it's not playing. I think this is my original kick. and I didn't like it, so I went through and replaced it with a different one. So I mean, the same could be done with vocals too. But these are the references I use. I was going for that same. So that's how I do references, and that's how I mastered. Same thing with the mastering chain. It probably looks very similar. I have a hard cut here. I think I was really trying to squeeze it, and I wanted it really tight. That's not a normal move for me. Yeah, like that's a hard cut. I was really trying to clear it out to make that hit. 6 decibels of gain reduction. I even have some transient emphasis, which is where some of that distortion is coming from. But I like the way it sounded. I mean, it's top at -7. A little high. Barely tapping the bands. Barely tapping it. And I'll sometimes use this to look at tone curve, just because this is better. Like everything's nice and glued together, but I can still hear everything. Like it's nice and glued, but I can still hear each element. Like nothing's getting drowned out. There's no mud. Especially with that sub and kick, which are the most important things to me. What's this? I also didn't go over my drum bus. I'll barely kind of tap everything. I'll do everything as far as I'll kind of do everything by ear as far as volume, and then I'll go through and I'll barely glue everything together. Usually it's a little more than that, but I'm just kind of centered around that kick, a slow attack and a quick release. But you gotta be careful because you can make your hats pump. And you can hear, like now it's there's more glue there, but it's still the same loudness, which is that equal perceived loudness I was talking about. Those hats pop out a little bit more. Yeah, it's just finding that balance. One production advice I wish I learned earlier. So, I think the most important thing of production is all these tricks and way I do things. Come with time, and other producers find their ways too. Like there's some general rules, like as far as like some cardinal rules you don't want to break, the writing, ABAC, but you don't. I think the biggest thing I needed to learn was to be more confident in myself. And when first starting off, I would spend a lot of time on a track because I didn't think it was good enough. When I think the big thing is to really is to kind of have a fuck it mentality, really. Like when you it's kind of hard to explain. I talk to a lot of new producers. I do it too. I did it too. I would obsess over something and spend hours when it just needs to go. You just need to keep cranking it out, and the more you do it, the better you get at it on the way. Like if you finish a track in 6 hours, it doesn't matter how good it is at that point, because the more you do that, 5 years from now, when you finish the track in 6 hours, it's going to be better. So the big thing is to just keep doing it and working on it. My mentor taught me that to master something, you have to put in 10,000 hours of it. Nobody's going to open up a DAW and throw something together in 30 minutes and make it sound.
Make your music stand out, get more views, and way more engagement. Bring your music to life. Get Music Visualizer. In every format, even for social media. Get started today. The link is in the description.
Sound like a Grammy award-winning track their first time. It's just not going to happen. So you got to get your 10,000 hours in and ignore all the bullshit. The hardest person to convince is yourself. If you can convince yourself that you want to do it, then it'll happen. If that makes sense. I'm really bad at explaining this. It's more of a kind of a feeling. It's really of, I know this sounds corny, but one thing when I started getting into production was, one thing that stuck with me is, I think Eminem has a song that says you can do anything you put your mind to. You just have to believe in yourself. And that's the hardest thing to do, is once you start believing in yourself, then you just kind of stop worrying about everything and you'll learn it. Like, don't worry about the way something sounds, why I can't get it to sound like my idol. Well, first of all, your idol's probably been doing it for 20 years, and he's probably made, 60,000 tracks. So that's what I had to do, was just go through and just start making tracks and just learning along the way. To me, that was one of the biggest things I could have learned from production. Like, you can learn all these rules, you can learn all these different techniques, but the big thing is psychological. I think that's the hardest thing about being a producer, is really getting over that curve and finding confidence. And once you kind of find your groove, you just go. Tunnel vision, just go. And I mean, if you believe in yourself, that's all that matters. Because, I mean, who cares what anybody else thinks? Not everybody's gonna like your music. Not a big deal. I've sent tracks to labels. You're like, yeah, it's not for us. All right, cool. Next track. Another label. Move on. How do I mix the kick and snare to work on the same hit? Interesting question. So I actually delay my clap just a bit. Actually move this forward. I've moved my clap -3 milliseconds to the left. So it's coming a little bit before the kick. And then I also cut out my low end on my clap. If you look at your EQ, they're in different ends of the spectrum. And then the glue, I kind of keep them, this compressor's kind of making sure they're good. I'm tapping it though, like I'm not doing too much. It's just all by ear. If one's getting drowned out, then you have one that's too hot, or they have clashing frequencies. You'll want to go through. And again, it's sample picking. if you put in a snare here, you could put in a snare here at the same volume that won't fit. So sample picking, and that comes with that just grinding and knowing what samples will sound good. And the only way to learn that is doing it a million times. Same thing with compression. Like, I can sit here and show you all the rules of compression and how to do it, but until you sit there and compress a terrible rapper from somewhere, you compress his vocals for like 6 hours trying to get it right. That's just how you learn. That's just a metaphor, by the way. I don't know any terrible rappers. Like that doesn't fit to me. That's just a sample. That delay helps it a little. Maybe cutting out some frequencies. And that makes it better, but it's just not, that's not it. It doesn't have that crack like that clap does. So again, sample picking. Sample picking is very important. Pick your favorite samples and make a folder. I have a splice folder with all my drums, kicks, hi-hats. These are the hats I tend to use. I don't even use a lot of these anymore. I really only use like these 3 kicks. I've even stolen some kicks before from a song. But yeah, psychological is the biggest thing in production. There's so much doubt when you're starting off. And by the way, any creative will tell you there are waves of non-creative moments. Whether it be depression or you're just not feeling it, and that's just part of it, and that doubt is always there, and it's really overcoming that doubt. That's when the magic happens. Once you get over that doubt and you just crank it out. My best songs I've written, like, I think I wrote this song, I wrote the loop probably in 30 minutes. The hardest part was the mix, which is something completely different. But once you just go, you go. Any other questions? Am I missing something? Yeah, thanks for having me. This was fun. I don't normally get to nerd out on my tracks and how I made them, so a lot of people. Another piece of it, it kind of falls under the same advice. A lot of people send me tracks for feedback, and a lot of it is, just because I don't like something doesn't mean somebody else won't. So I always tell people to usually just keep going. Like, sounds great, move on to the next song. Consistency, yes. Consistency. Don't think, just do. The hardest thing for me is getting into the state of flow with so many distractions. And I don't get into that state every day. I have days where I lose. I'll go to the studio and 8 hours I don't come up with anything. And I'll just, whatever. And then there's days where I go in and I do nothing but listen to music. And there's days where I go in and I write a banger. It's just setting yourself up to get into that state is really just doing it. I think that's the best thing. Is just start working. Set aside time, even if it's an hour. Sit down for an hour and just start fiddling around. Try new sound designs. Try open up Serum and try something. If you're not feeling it, try something new. Try making a different genre. Just drop in Serum. Try something cool. And sometimes you'll make something, not all the time, but sometimes you'll make something and be like, whoa, that was cool. And then just keep showing up. Sometimes you'll make something and you'll just be like, you'll get inspired just by something you made. I'll just do something like this. See, to me that sounds very kind of disassociated, or disassociating, so you can I'll do something like that, and I'll just be like, oh, I can make a song based around that, just. I'm sorry, I don't even have that open. So all I'm doing is just messing with this. I'm messing with the envelope and a filter. Nothing too advanced. And then I'll even try to automate some stuff. You can, can you? Yeah, you can. So I'll do an 8-bar. It's just finding inspiration, but yeah, just showing up, making yourself do it, because I know many times I don't want to do it. I also have a separate workplace because I can't focus at home because the Xbox is here and TV's here and my dog's here, my kid's here. So I have a studio that I go to. But I mean, if you have a place in your house that you can do it, great. It's just sitting down and making yourself do it and building momentum. Momentum is a big thing. Once you get that confidence, you keep it going. You just keep it going. Doesn't matter. Don't worry about what anybody else thinks. Just keep going. Because 10 years from now, you're going to look back at a song you made and you're not going to care. You're not going to like it. Well, thanks for tuning in, guys. Again, shoot me some questions if you have any. Later.